Folks, we got a busy one here today. The sap ran hard. I'm in short sleeves. I think it's 60 out here. I'm still trudging through a foot of snow. It's bare under the hemlock where it didn't snow a lot. We got the pump going. That's going up to the sugar house. This pump line here. Look at the flow of water we got. I've almost never seen the water run that hard, but there's a lot of snow melt coming out of these hills. So we're pumping up. We're gonna run the RO. I'm gonna take you through our setup, and we're gonna boil this evening because we got a lot to boil. Here we are down at the tank. We got this guzzler plugging away. Our tank's pretty full. Here's how we come off the tank, bottom into the pump. This is the smallest Echo pump, and it's pushing it through about 350 feet of 1-inch line, no problem. Here's our guzzler. We're pulling about 17 inches of vacuum on a 400 tap wet dry system, so that's pretty satisfactory. I have gotten it higher the next day and a couple days after. We ran a recirculation line on this down into the tank because if these diaphragms are full of sap, they pull higher vacuum. So here we are up above, and this is the other end of that pump line coming into our RO feed tank. It's about a 380 gallon tank. Here's our lines running down, and then we've got this one line running over into the sugar house, and that is where our concentrate comes in. Here's a view of that creek during the big snow melt. I asked Grandpa if he'd ever seen this creek this high in his 86 years, and he can't recall seeing it that high, so this is quite a major snow melt we've got going on, but the sap sure did run good. This line right here is our raw sap coming in. This manifold feeds our feed pump, low pressure pump. This line going out is our permeate, that's the water. And I did plumb in a recirculation tank, but the first time we ran this RO, we realized we did not need that recirculation tank, which was a pleasant surprise. So we got a spare tank, could put sap in there. Right now we got sap in this tank. We're gonna open this valve, run it into here. From there it goes up into here, gets filtered. This line runs over and feeds our high pressure pump right here. This is a little Procon pump, so it feeds this, and then this goes down, and then we run our high pressure line over. We actually feed that far membrane first, and it goes through these 5 here. From there it comes over into these last 2 membranes, then it gets pushed out, and this is how we regulate our pressure right here is with this valve, and we have a bypass. So when we start up, we want to open our bypass, and then we'll tighten it down, adjust everything. This right here is where I check my percent solids, and then it goes up and into the sugar house. Like I said, I originally plumbed it in so it could also go into this recirculation tank. So if you do need one, I think this would be a good way to do it, but we just send it straight into the sugar house because we get at least 7%. And then this right here works both as a drain, and that's also how I suck the acid into the system when I'm gonna clean my membranes. And then the permeate comes off the bottom of these out the center. These 2 I've tied in here. These 7, these actually come off the top out of the center. Same thing, teed in right here. I've got a spot where I can drain that system or take water off. And then it goes out into our permeate tank, and then we're also able to bring it back in later on, push it back through the system, and wash it when we're all done. Check your valves, so make sure your valves are open, all the ones that you need to have open. So we're going to open this valve that feeds the RO. We do have our valve inside closed, as you saw. This valve is open, so these lines directly correspond to what we saw inside. So our permeate comes up into this tank. Our sap comes from here, and then we did have a recirculation tank that we'll be able to repurpose for whatever we need to. It's gonna have to be off camera because it takes a couple hands. We're gonna open this valve that lets the sap in, feed this. We have a little relief here to let air through, so you hit that till you get water. We're getting water, sap, and then we run this outside from here until we're getting the percent that we want to see, because right now these are filled with water and we don't want to send that in the sugar house. So I just put a drain line on here until we get the solids that we want to see. So I've got my drain line on there to drain off the water. We're hooked up here. We got our hydrometer here for checking the percent solids. So usually when I start seeing about 1, maybe 2, but usually 1, that's when I'll start sending it into the sugar house because it picks up pretty quick from there. So what are we starting at? Well, this here goes from 0 to 12. And so 2 is labeled, 1 is not. We've got, let's get this thing turned around. It's 1.5 when it stops bobbing. I've already checked it. So we're at 1.5. As I showed previously in one of my videos, you measure to the surface of the water, the bottom of that meniscus going up the edge of the hydrometer. So we're starting out at 1.5, squeezing about 7, 7.5. What I've done here is I took that hose that runs outside, and every so often I turn that off, pop the hose off, check my concentrate. Right now we're got the sugar house valve open, we're sending it in there, and last I checked we were at 4%. I think now we're up at our full 7.5%. I'm running it as tight as I feel like running it because we've got a lot of sap and not a lot of time to boil, so we're at about 220 right now. So I'll probably back that off a little bit, but I'm just trying to squeeze it pretty tight right now. We're at 8.5%. We are squeezing at 200 and almost 220 psi. Both gauges show that. So a little bit of specs on this. This motor can be wired 240. We have it wired 120, and it is a 3/4 horse motor. Again, running a Procon pump. There's the information on that, if this can be helpful to anybody. We are running 7 membranes, 7 4-inch membranes. We're starting with about 1.5% sap. Each membrane, as a rule of thumb, will raise your solids 1% per pass, which checks out with our 8.5%. Now, normally I run this at 200 or just below, 190, 200, right in there. Then I get 7%. So I may back it off a little bit, but we got a lot of sap and I'm trying to work through that, so I'm running it pretty high right now. But this, I'm very impressed with this system. I did not expect the 3/4 horse motor to push it through. Our feed pump is only a 1/2 horse running that pump. I have 3/4 inch main line that I've used to plumb that pump in. I use that 3/4 inch line most places. Now we are gravity down to this point, so that's something to consider. If you have to suction, you might want to run 1-inch hose for this pump. But we got a 1/2 horse, 3/4 horse on a little Procon. And we always start the feed pump first because this is meant to have a certain amount of pressure. This is our low pressure gauge, so that's what this feed pump is pushing, and it's usually around 50. Right now it's a little over 50, which is very good to see. And then the high pressure pump brings it up to whatever we want it to be based on this gauge right here. So I'm gonna loosen this off, and you're gonna be able to watch our pressure drop. So I've gone That's one full turn on that. Then we're down about 200. So all we're doing is loosening that or tightening it. So we're gonna go back up to where we were, around 220. This is a bypass, still in the high pressure system. It gets low pressure right here and right here, and so then that just goes in the, currently in the sugar house. And so you can use this valve and open that up, you know, if you spike a pressure and you're in an emergency, or if you're shutting down. Those are the two times where I use this bypass. So if you're setting one of these up, absolutely take the extra time and effort and parts and put in a bypass there. And again, this is the way that's set up. They're brass fittings. We've got high pressure hose. It's rated 250. This red hose is rated 300, and then this here I believe is 250, and so we're definitely not going to get anywhere close to that 250 mark. But this is what we've got for a bypass. Comes in here and normally runs this way through the pressure valve, but this is the alternate route if you operate this valve. Let's check in on our evaporator feed tank. Here's our incoming line. Still got to tighten that up. That's in from the RO, so you got a nice steady stream coming in here. We're gonna fire the evaporator soon. We got about an inch down there. I like to wait for several inches so that we have a little buffer. Then we'll get the evaporator fired up. We got this plumbed in, so this line runs back and down in to the float box on the evaporator. So you saw in there our evaporator feed tank up in the loft, how much it had, maybe an inch. This is roughly the same footprint. We're up to here with water, with permeate, and so that's about the ratio. 1 inch in the sugar house to, you know, 5 or 6 inches out here. And this tank was up to just under this lip, just down here. You saw it earlier, and so that's kind of our ratio. That RO will work through this tank in about an hour. We've got more to pump up, but it'll take us about an hour to get this done. About halfway through it, or maybe just under halfway, we'll get the evaporator fired up. Thank you folks for sticking with me through this overview. I hope it was interesting and answered a few questions on the reverse osmosis end of things. Make sure and stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't, both to support the channel, but also next up on the channel is an overview of the sugar house. So I'm going to be showing the process inside the sugar house where the syrup is actually made.